I defended my son for destroying my niece's handmade ice cream, snatched back her birthday gift as punishment for asking for an apology, and walked out. The entire world has since turned its back on us both. I'm writing this from my kitchen table at 1 a.m. because I can't sleep and haven't been able to for 3 weeks. My son is 9 years old and hasn't been invited to a single birthday party in 4 months. No playdates. No sleepovers. No after-school hangouts. Nothing. His last text conversation with a friend was 47 days ago. I know because I checked his tablet. The message said, "Mason, do you want to come over Saturday?" He replied yes. The kid never responded. That was it. End of thread. This is my fault. All of it. And I need to say that upfront because I spent 3 months blaming everyone else before I finally ran out of people to point at. Let me start from where it broke. My niece Hazel turned 10 in June. My sister-in-law Janelle threw her a party at their house. Backyard. Streamers. Bounce house. Maybe 20 kids. Normal Saturday afternoon stuff. Janelle is married to my brother Victor. They've got 2 kids. Hazel and her younger brother Noah, who's 6. Here's what you need to know about Hazel. She's one of those kids who's quiet but has this thing she's passionate about, and it's baking. Not regular baking. This girl watches YouTube tutorials. Writes down recipes in a notebook with a little pencil that has a strawberry eraser on top. She's 10. She asked for an ice cream maker for Christmas when she was 8. Janelle got her one. Since then Hazel has been making homemade ice cream for every family event. Every holiday. Every gathering. She experiments with flavors. Writes them in her notebook. Names them. Labels the containers with little stickers she designs herself. For her own birthday she made 3 flavors from scratch. Lavender honey. Strawberry basil. Chocolate cayenne. Spent 2 days on them. Janelle told me later that Hazel woke up at 6 a.m. the morning of the party to check the consistency. She had them in matching containers with handwritten labels and little spoons she picked out from a craft store. That's the kid. That's what mattered to her. Now let me tell you what my son did. Mason is 9. He's loud. He's physical. He's the kid who runs everywhere instead of walking. I always called it energy. Other people had different words for it, but I didn't listen to those words because he's my son, and I decided a long time ago that the world needed to adjust to him and not the other way around. 20 minutes into the party. Kids are eating. Hazel set up her ice cream station on a folding table near the back fence. Little cups. Little spoons. A sign she made that said Hazel's homemade ice cream with drawings of each flavor around the edges. She was standing behind the table scooping for kids. Happy. Proud. In her element. Mason ran past the table chasing another kid. Bumped it. The lavender honey fell off. Lid popped. Ice cream hit the grass. Hazel gasped. Not a scream. A gasp. Like the air left her body. Now here's where a normal parent would have walked over. Said, "Mason, come here." Said, "Apologize." Said, "Help clean it up." Here's where a decent person would have handled it in 30 seconds and the party would have continued and nobody would remember it by Monday. I didn't do that. Mason laughed. Not a mean laugh. A startled laugh. The kind kids do when something unexpected happens. But to Hazel it didn't matter what kind of laugh it was. Her ice cream was on the ground and the boy who knocked it over was laughing. Janelle walked over. Calm. Not yelling. Said, "Mason, sweetie, can you say sorry to Hazel?" She worked really hard on that. And I felt something rise in my chest. Something defensive. Something ugly. I felt like my son was being singled out. Put on the spot. Made to feel bad in front of other kids. I walked over and said, "He didn't do it on purpose. He was just running. It was an accident." Janelle said, "I know it was an accident. But she's upset and an apology would go a long way." I said, "He's 9. Kids bump into things. It's a party." Janelle looked at me. Not angry yet. Confused. She said, "Crystal. She just wants him to say sorry." And I don't know why I did what I did next. I've replayed it 400 times. I still don't have a good answer. I think it was pride. I think it was the feeling that my parenting was being questioned in front of 20 people. I think it was the fact that Janelle's kids are always so well behaved and minded, and I was tired of feeling like the family failure every time we showed up somewhere. I said, "He doesn't need to apologize for being a kid." Janelle's face changed. Victor walked over. He said, "Crystal, just have him say sorry. It's not a big deal." I said, "Then why are 3 adults standing around making it one?" Victor said, "Because your son knocked over something my daughter spent 2 days making and he's laughing about it." Mason was still standing there. Watching. He'd stopped laughing by then. He looked uncomfortable. He looked like he wanted to say sorry. I could see it on his face. His mouth opened a little. He was about to speak. And I cut him off. I said, "Mason, go play. You didn't do anything wrong." He hesitated. Looked at Hazel. Looked at me. Then ran off. Hazel was crying. Quietly. Holding the empty container. Lavender honey dripping off the side of the table onto the grass. Her sign had a wet stain on the corner. Janelle kneeled next to Hazel and said, "It's okay, baby. You still have 2 more flavors. People love them." And I should have let it end there. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Because by that point I'd dug myself into a position and my pride wouldn't let me climb out. I walked to the gift table. Found the present I'd brought. Wrapped in pink paper with a white bow. A sketching kit. Colored pencils. Nice ones. $60 set. I picked it up. Janelle looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "If my son isn't welcome here, then neither is my gift." The backyard went quiet. 20 kids. A dozen parents. A bounce house motor humming in the background. Everyone staring. Victor said, "Nobody said Mason isn't welcome. We asked for an apology. That's it." I said, and I said no. "So we're leaving." I took the gift. Grabbed Mason's arm. He said, "Mom, I don't want to go." I said, "We're going." Hazel watched me take the present off the table. A gift with her name on it. Being carried away by an adult. At her own birthday party. While she stood next to a puddle of melted ice cream that used to be her favorite flavor. We left. I put Mason in the car. He was quiet. He said, "Mom, can we go back?" I said, "No." He said, "But I didn't say bye to anyone." I said, "You don't need to." He didn't talk for the rest of the drive. I told myself I'd done the right thing. That I'd stood up for my son. That I wasn't going to let anyone make him feel small. I texted my friend Rochelle about it. She said, "Good for you. Don't let them bully your kid." I screenshot that and kept it like a trophy. 3 days later. Radio silence from Victor and Janelle. I figured they'd come around. They always did. Our families had disagreements before. Someone always texted first. Usually me with a breezy, "Hey, are we good?" And then everyone moved on. I sent the text. "Hey, are we good?" Victor replied. 1 message. Long. He said, "Crystal. Our daughter cried herself to sleep the night of her birthday. Not because Mason knocked the ice cream over. Because an adult at her party took a gift with her name on it off the table in front of all her friends as punishment for asking for a basic apology. She asked Janelle before bed if she did something wrong. She asked why Aunt Crystal was mad at her. She's 10. She made ice cream for everyone and her reward was public humiliation by a grown woman. We love Mason. We've always included him. But what you did was cruel and we need space." I read it. My chest got tight. But I didn't apologize. I screenshot it and sent it to Rochelle. She said, "They're overreacting. Kids forget these things in a week." Kids don't forget these things in a week. 2 weeks later my mother called. She said she'd heard about the party. She said, "Crystal, what were you thinking?" I said, "I was protecting my son." She said, "From what? A 10-year-old asking for sorry?" She said, "Victor and Janelle are talking about skipping Thanksgiving this year." I said, "Over ice cream?" She said, "It's not about ice cream and you know it." I didn't know it. That's the thing. I genuinely believed it was about ice cream for another month. Owen. My husband. He was at the party. He saw everything. He didn't say anything in the car ride home. Didn't say anything that night. 3 days after Victor's text he sat across from me at dinner and said, "You need to apologize." I said, "For what?" He said, "For what you did at the party. For taking the gift. For not letting Mason apologize. For making a scene." I said, "You were right there. You didn't stop me." He said, "You're right. I should have. And I'm telling you now. Fix it." I said, "They're the ones freezing us out." He said, "Because you humiliated their daughter at her own birthday party. Crystal. You took a present off a 10-year-old's gift table. In front of her friends. Because you were too proud to let your son say 2 words." That hit different coming from Owen. He never raises his voice. He never takes sides. But his face that night? He wasn't angry. He was tired. The kind of tired that comes from watching someone you love do something indefensible and knowing they're going to keep defending it. I still didn't apologize. A month passed. Then the invitations stopped. Mason came home from school one Thursday and said, Aiden is having a birthday party and I'm not invited. I said, that's okay. Not every kid gets invited to every party. But that weekend I saw pictures on Instagram. 15 kids. Including 3 of Mason's closest friends. 2 weeks later. Another party. Not invited. Then another. Not invited. I called one of the moms. Wendy. I said, hey, is everything okay with the boys? Mason hasn't been getting invited to things lately. She got quiet. She said, Crystal, I'm going to be honest with you because I think you deserve honesty. Several parents heard about what happened at Hazel's party. A couple of them were there. And the general feeling is that if you can't model basic accountability for your son, then there's a concern about how he handles conflict with other kids. I said, that's insane. He bumped a table. She said, it's not about the table. It's about what you did after. You took a gift off a child's birthday table. As punishment. For asking your son to say sorry. That scared some parents. I'm sorry, but that's where we are. I hung up. I cried. Not because I understood yet. Because I felt attacked. School. Parent-teacher conference. October. Mason's teacher, Mrs. Delgado, sat across from me and Owen. She said Mason was having trouble socially. Eating lunch alone some days. Quieter in class. She said, is everything okay at home? Owen looked at me. I looked at the table. Mrs. Delgado said, he drew something in art class last week that concerned me. She slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a drawing. A boy standing alone on one side. A group of kids on the other side behind a line. The boy had no mouth. I stared at that drawing for a long time. Owen drove us home. He said, this is what I was afraid of. I said nothing. That night I went to Mason's room. He was on his tablet. I sat on the edge of his bed. I said, hey buddy. How's school going? He said, fine. I said, are you hanging out with your friends at lunch? He said, sometimes. I said, who do you sit with? He said, it depends. I said, Mason. Tell me the truth. He put the tablet down. He said, nobody wants to sit with me anymore. And I don't know what I did. My son doesn't know what he did. Because he didn't do anything. I did. He was 9 years old and he was about to apologize and I stopped him. I physically redirected him away from accountability and toward isolation. I chose my pride over his social life and I didn't even realize I was doing it until he was sitting alone at a cafeteria table with no mouth in his own drawing. I called Janelle. First time in 4 months. She answered on the 3rd ring. I said, I need to apologize. She was quiet for a second. She said, I'm listening. I said, what I did at Hazel's party was wrong. Taking the gift was cruel. Not letting Mason apologize was selfish. I made it about me and I hurt your daughter and I'm sorry. Long pause. She said, thank you for saying that. And I mean this genuinely. But Crystal. Hazel asked me last week if she did something to make you hate her. She asked if her ice cream was bad. She stopped making it. She hasn't touched the ice cream maker since her birthday. The notebook is in her closet. She doesn't bring it out anymore. I couldn't breathe. Janelle said she made ice cream for every family event for 2 years. She was so proud of it. And now she associates it with being humiliated in front of her friends. That's not something an apology fixes overnight. I said, can I talk to her? She said, not yet. She's not ready. Give it time. I hung up and sat on my kitchen floor for 20 minutes. I called my mother. Told her I apologized. She said, good. That's step 1. But Crystal, you need to understand something. This isn't just about Hazel's party. This is a pattern. You've been defending Mason out of everything since he was 4. Remember when he pushed that girl at the playground and you said she was standing too close? Remember when he broke the neighbor kid's toy and you said it was cheap anyway? Remember when his teacher in 2nd grade said he needed to work on listening and you demanded a parent conference to argue? I remembered all of it. Every single one. And I remembered believing I was right every single time. She said, you've been so busy protecting Mason from consequences that you forgot to teach him how to handle them. And now he's 9 and he has no friends and he doesn't even understand why. That's not the world's fault. That's yours. Owen's mother called the following week. She said, Owen told me what happened. I said, I know. She said, my grandson drew a picture of himself with no mouth. I want you to sit with that, Crystal. A child who doesn't believe his voice matters draws himself without one. I sat with it. Victor called me 2 weeks after my apology to Janelle. He said, I appreciate that you called Janelle. But I need to say something to you directly. He said, I watched you take a birthday present off my daughter's table. In front of her friends. In front of our family. As a punishment for my daughter having feelings. I've never been that angry in my life. Not at Mason. At you. Because you're an adult and you chose to hurt a child to make a point about your own pride. I said, I know. He said, Mason tried to apologize. I saw his face. He wanted to say sorry. And you told him not to. You taught him that pride is more important than kindness. At 9 years old. Do you understand what that does to a kid? I said, I'm starting to. He said, Hazel loved Mason. She always picked him first for team games at family events. She saved him the biggest slice of cake at Noah's party last year. She considered him her favorite cousin. And now she doesn't mention his name. That sentence. She doesn't mention his name. 5 words that gutted me more than everything else combined. November. Thanksgiving. Victor and Janelle came. First time I'd seen them since June. Hazel walked in holding Janelle's hand. She looked at me and said, Hi, Aunt Crystal. Polite. Distant. The way you greet a stranger at church. Mason walked up to Hazel. He said, I'm sorry about your ice cream. I should have said it a long time ago. He'd been practicing. I didn't tell him to say it. Owen didn't tell him. He figured it out himself. 9 years old. Standing in the hallway. Looking at his cousin. Saying the words his mother should have let him say 4 months ago. Hazel looked at him. She said, It's okay, Mason. Then she walked into the kitchen with Janelle. She didn't say it's okay and mean everything's fine. She said it's okay the way you say it when you've already processed the hurt and moved past the person who caused it. She said it the way a 10-year-old says it when she's already learned that some people don't protect you even when they're supposed to. Mason looked at me after. He didn't say anything. But his face. His face said, Why didn't you let me do that in June? Dinner was quiet. Civil. But different. The ease was gone. Victor passed dishes without making jokes. Janelle smiled but it didn't reach her eyes. Hazel and Mason didn't sit together. They used to fight over who sat next to who. Now there was a chair between them. After dinner Hazel showed Noah a drawing she'd been working on. Flowers. Detailed. Beautiful. My mother said, Hazel, what about your ice cream? Are you going to make any for Christmas this year? Hazel shrugged. She said, I don't really do that anymore. The table went silent. My mother looked at me. Victor looked at his plate. Janelle put her hand on Hazel's shoulder. My son has no mouth in his own drawing. My niece stopped doing the one thing that made her light up. Both because of me. Because I couldn't say 4 words. He's sorry. Let him apologize. December. Mason's school had a holiday concert. He had a small part. 3 lines in a group song. Owen and I sat in the audience. After the show kids ran to their parents. Groups formed. Playdates got planned in the parking lot. Mason stood next to me. Nobody came over. A mom I recognized. Dawn. She smiled at Mason and said, Great job up there, buddy. Then she turned to me and her smile disappeared. She walked away. Mason said, Can we get pizza? I said, Yeah, buddy. Let's get pizza. We sat in a booth at the pizza place. Just us 3. Owen. Me. Mason. He ate 2 slices and asked if he could play the arcade game by the door. I gave him quarters. Owen said, You see what's happening? I said, Yeah. He said, This isn't going away. The other parents have made a decision about you and Mason is paying for it. I said, What am I supposed to do? Go door to door apologizing. He said, Maybe. Yeah. Maybe exactly that. I didn't go door to door. But I did something. I called Wendy back. I said, You were right. What I did was wrong. I'm working on it. She said, I appreciate that. She said, I'll talk to some of the other moms. But Crystal. Trust takes time to rebuild. Especially when kids are involved. January. Rochelle. My friend. The one who said, Good for you. Don't let them bully your kid. I called her to talk about everything. She said, Wait, you're actually apologizing to them? I thought we agreed they were overreacting. I said, They weren't overreacting. My niece stopped baking. My son has no friends. I took a gift off a 10-year-old's table because I was too proud to let my kids say sorry. Rochelle got quiet. Then she said, I mean, she is just a kid. She'll get over the ice cream thing. And I realized something. Rochelle wasn't my friend. Rochelle was my echo chamber. Every time I did something wrong, she told me I was right. Every time I should have been challenged, she validated me. She wasn't supporting me. She was enabling me. And I'd been using her approval as a shield against accountability my entire adult life. I said, I can't do this anymore. She said, do what? I said, pretend that what I did was okay because you tell me it was. She didn't call back for 2 weeks. When she did, it was about something else entirely. We don't talk about the party anymore. We don't really talk much at all. February. 6 months after the party. Mason came home from school and said, Aiden invited me to his birthday party. I said, that's great, buddy. He said, yeah. He said his mom said I could come. His mom said I could come. My 9-year-old is aware that his social life requires parental permission from other families. That's not normal. That's a consequence of what I created. He went to the party. He came home happy. First time I'd seen that look on his face in months. He said, it was fun. I played with everyone. He said, Aiden said he missed hanging out. I almost cried. I held it until he went to his room. Then I cried at the kitchen sink while Owen stood behind me with his hand on my shoulder. March. Janelle called. She said, Hazel wants to try making ice cream again. She wants to make it for Easter. I said that's wonderful. She said, Hazel asked if Mason could help her. She said she wants to teach him how to do the strawberry basil. I couldn't talk for about 10 seconds. Janelle waited. I said, he would love that. She said, Crystal. I need you to hear this. What you did at that party hurt my daughter in a way that took months to heal. But I also know that Hazel misses her cousin. And I know Mason misses her. Kids are better at forgiveness than adults. But that forgiveness is fragile. If something like this happens again, there won't be a next time. Do you understand? I said, I understand. She said, good. Easter. 2 p.m. Bring Mason. I hung up. Sat at the kitchen table. Looked at the drawing Mrs. Delgado gave us. The boy with no mouth. I'd kept it on the fridge. Not as decoration. As a reminder. Easter. Mason and Hazel stood at the kitchen counter. She showed him how to measure the basil. He was careful. Focused. She said, you have to stir slow or it gets icy. He stirred slow. She smiled. Not the full smile from before. But a real one. Noah wandered in and said, can I help? Hazel said, you can taste test. He said, best job ever. I stood in the doorway. Janelle stood next to me. We didn't talk. We just watched. Victor walked past us. He stopped. Looked at the kids. Looked at me. He said, that's what it was always supposed to look like. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. That night at home I went to Mason's room. He was already in bed. I sat on the edge. I said, Mason, I need to tell you something. He said, what? I said, at Hazel's party last summer. When you knocked over the ice cream. You wanted to say sorry. I saw it on your face. And I told you not to. That was wrong. I should have let you apologize. I should have helped you make it right. Instead, I made it worse. And you lost your friends because of my mistake. Not yours. Mine. He was quiet. Then he said, I know. I said, you know? He said, I knew I should have said sorry. I was going to. But you said I didn't do anything wrong. And then you got mad and we left. And then nobody wanted to play with me. I didn't understand why, because you said I didn't do anything wrong. 9 years old. He understood the contradiction before I did. He knew he should apologize. His instinct was correct. His mother overrode it. I replaced his moral compass with my ego and then sent him into the world without the tools to navigate it. He said, it's okay, Mom. I said, it's not okay. But I'm going to do better. He said, I know. Then he rolled over and went to sleep. Like it was simple. Like forgiving his mother for destroying his social life for 6 months was just something he could do between dinner and bedtime. It's June now. 1 year since the party. Mason has friends again. Not all of them. Some parents still keep distance. Some moms still give me the look at school pickup. But it's better. Hazel made ice cream for Memorial Day. 3 flavors. She didn't name them this time. She didn't make labels. She just set them on the table and let people serve themselves. The joy is coming back, but it's quieter now. More guarded. She protects it differently. My mother told me last week. She said, you know what the worst part was? Not the ice cream. Not the gift. The worst part was Mason's face when you told him to go play. Because he knew. A 9-year-old knew he owed someone an apology, and his own mother told him his instincts were wrong. I think about that every day. I overrode my son's conscience. I taught him that pride matters more than kindness. I showed a 10-year-old girl that adults will punish you for having feelings. I snatched a present off a child's birthday table because my ego was more important than her happiness. And the worst part. The part that keeps me up at 1 a.m. staring at this kitchen table. I almost didn't learn. I almost kept blaming them. I almost let Mason sit alone at that cafeteria table for the rest of elementary school rather than admit I was wrong. The boy with no mouth. He drew himself that way because his mother took his voice. Not the bullies. Not the other kids. Not the school. Me. I took his voice. And I called it protection.